the Marshall Thundering Herd rally, and App State could be moving into first place. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Big show today, waiting for the games to end. A little power outage in Norfolk. There was also a power outage in the Syracuse ball game. Very interesting. Up and down the East Coast a little bit. And just as we're starting to record, the Troy game has gone final. Texas State has defeated Troy 74-62, and App State with a comfortable 77-63 lead over Georgia Southern. So we will get to those ball games. We'll also look ahead to Thursday's action coming up later today. But how about the Marshall Thundering Herd? Licking their chops off what was not a great performance against Miami of Ohio. I know we could talk about, they could have lost by 30. They did get it down to 10, but they did not play nearly as well as they wanted to in front of a sold-out crowd in Huntington, West Virginia. And they did not get off to a great start in this ball game against ODU in a game that they won 81-79, not having the first lead in the ball game until 3 minutes left to go, which was 79-77 was their first lead in the ball game. And actually kind of half paying attention, half not, because it was a blowout. But I happened to turn it on, and Marshall made it a 24-19 ball game. They pulled within 5 points. ODU scored 7 points in a minute. They hit a three, they got a layup, and they got an and one. And so it went from 5 to 12 in a minute without a turnover. They just missed, and ODU hit some quick shots. And then at halftime, let's see what the score was. We have it at halftime. At halftime, ODU was up 47-34, and ODU was in control of this ball game until they weren't. They were up by 17. They had a 17-point lead, 56-39. A little bit into the second half, 17 and a half minutes to go. They even had a 13-point lead in the second half, and that's sort of when, excuse me, and that's sort of when Marshall started coming back. That's why we have the drink in case we do get something stuck. All right, so let's see here. It was... What did we say it was? 56-39. But it was also 66-53 with 13 minutes left to go. All right. It was also, let's see here, 69-58 with 9:35 left to go. Like ODU is in control, right? They were up by 17. Marshall making a little bit of a run, and then boom, they made a 10-0 run. It went from 69-58 to 69-68. And again, we said, ODU scored 7 points in a minute. They scored 10 points in 2 minutes. They were down 69-58, 9:35 to go, maybe 2.5. They made it 69-68 with 7:10 to go. I mean, that's fast. That's fast. And then all of a sudden, in that stretch, Marshall changed to, say, token full court pressure, kind of just trying to take time off the shot clock type of deal, and then playing an aggressive 2-3 zone. And when I say aggressive 2-3 zone, I mean, you could have done alley-oops all day. No one's covering the back line. They were just all around the top of the key and out to the wings. And ODU just did not make the adjustments. Marshall made a defensive adjustment, and ODU did not adjust to that adjustment. And Marshall comes away with a victory. Again, their first lead, it did go, I wouldn't say back and forth, but it was a 1-point game, 3-point game, then tied. Dubinsky makes it a 71-71 ball game. Then Jared Turner hits a 3-pointer for ODU. They're up by 3. Jalen Spear hits a layup makes it a 74-73 ball game. LJ Thomas with a jumper for ODU makes it a 3-point ball game. And they got an and one on that. So it was 77-73 with 5:17 left to go. Marshall makes it they get an and one, 77-75, and then 76 with a free throw. And then Jalen Spear hits a 3-pointer, 79-77. And then, as the commentator said, nobody was taking good shots. Everyone was just trying to wind down the shot clock and kind of flail away at the end. And the difference in this ball game was it was a 2-point ball game, and ODU threw it away in the backcourt. Landon Joseph just picks off a lazy pass with about a minute left to go, just over a minute left to go, turning a 79-77 ball game into an 81-77 ball game. ODU does make it 81-79. Jalen Spear misses a free throw, a front end of a 1-and-1. ODU doesn't call timeout right away for whatever reason. They almost threw it away. They almost walked, and they did call a timeout before turnover happened. Battle actually got a pretty good shot off. It went around almost the entire rim, but did not go in. So that's a really nice win for Marshall. It is among others, a brutal loss for ODU. They have not had a good season at all. They have some really interesting wins, but they can't seem to follow that up, right? They had a nice win in the Sun Belt MAC Challenge against Ohio, but then lose at home and blow a 17-point lead to Marshall, right? They even lost, they go on the road and beat Arkansas State, but then you lose at Texas State, which is no shame there. But then you lost at home to Monroe as Monroe's only conference win. So it has just been a really tough season for ODU. They're always tough. They don't usually get blown out too often. They did lose by 17 to Texas State, but, they lost to Troy by 6. They beat App State, which is a nice win, by 2. They lost to Georgia Southern by 3. They lost to James Madison by 1, right? Last night they lost to Marshall by 2. So they're always tough, but they're trying to get that winning culture in there, and it has not happened here in the last couple of years under Mike Jones. All right, let's take a timeout as we'll come back, and the App State Mountaineers have moved into first place in the Sun Belt Conference. We will talk about that after you see this message from Mazda.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, and now let me tell you about the Everydayer Club. Thank you for making Locked On Sunbelt your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports pod network. You already live Sunbelt Sports every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Sunbelt with no interruptions for just $5 a month, or even better, $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSunbelt.supercast or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Continuing our episode. Now, admittedly, started it just a little early. Sometimes the last few minutes of games can take way too long. That's not what happened here. Just as I did the open, wouldn't you know it, Troy fell to Texas State 74-62, opening the door for App State to take on Georgia Southern, and they win on the road. App State beats Georgia Southern 81-65. All right. Before I look at any stats in that ball game, I mean, what does App State average points-wise, right? They average 71.3. Like, how many times have they scored 80 points this season? It's not their thing. They generally score about in the 70s, right? Like, they scored 85 against James Madison. Let's see when that was. Is that about a month ago? January 15th, almost a month ago. All right, that was the last time they scored 80. They don't even score 70 all that much. They beat Troy 66-44. They beat South Alabama 65-57. They beat Eastern Michigan 65-60, right? So this is an offensive explosion. They lost to Coastal 67-62. They beat Georgia State 52-50. All right. They did lose to Marshall, scoring 80 points. They lost 88-81. So that would be the first thing that hits me in this ball game, is that App State put up a bunch of points. All right, so let's see how they shot the ball. About 48%, very good. They were 30% from three. More along the lines, though, they played their defensive battle, which they did very well. They only led 31-27 at half, but in the second half, won that 50-38. Georgia Southern only shot 38% from the floor. They did make 11 threes. A lot of free throws for App in this one. 20 out of 28, 71%. Georgia Southern only 6 for 9. In the second half, App State was on, fire. They shot at almost 79%, 69.6%, 16 of 23 in the second half, plus 15 out of 21 free throws. They only attempted 7 3-pointers in the second half. So obviously they were getting the ball inside. They even shot at 43% from three. So a very efficient offensive game for App State. Jennings led the way. Kasen Jennings led the way. 31 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. You'll love to see it. Marcus had 21 points. He was 6 out of 11. He had 10 rebounds. And Alonzo Dodd had 18 points, 7 out of 12 from the floor. For Georgia Southern, you did have more with 17 points and Spud Webb with a 12. Dunn had 10 off the bench. So App State moves into first place, right? They overtake Troy, who loses 74-62. And a couple things we mentioned this past week. We need to be talking more about App State. That was a well-timed episode yesterday. And we also mentioned Texas State is kind of lurking, right? They're just kind of sitting there, a couple games behind. All right. They're still 2 games behind Troy in the loss column. But, can they find themselves in a top 4 seed? They did a good job tonight. They shot the ball extremely well, 60% for the game, 28 out of 47. My goodness, did not shoot threes very well, and also shot it well from the free throw line, 16 out of 19. Hall had 21 on 9 of 15 shooting. Drone with 15, 6 out of 11 shooting, and Gums had 11, 4 out of 6 shooting. For Troy, Victor Valdez had a big ball game, although only 5 of 12 from the floor, 22 points, 12 of 16 from the free throw line, but 0 for 5 from 3. They shot only 30% from 3 and 2 of 14 in the second half as they were trying to come back. The Campbell brothers only combined for 15 points. Cooper Campbell, 3 of 8 from the floor, although 2 of 3 from threes. And Kobe Campbell only had 5 points, 1 of 5 from 3. Thomas Dowd struggled, 4 points, 1 of 8 from the floor, did have 6 rebounds. Sang did have 14 points, 4 of 5 shooting. So Texas State beats Troy 74-62. So if we want to go look at the standings and see where they have moved up, we do have one more game to go over, and we will in this segment before we hit today's ball games coming up. So App State is atop the conference. They lead it 10-4. They got a full game lead, if not 1.5 game lead over Troy. Remember, they beat Troy, so they own the tiebreaker. Okay, so App State's 10-4. Troy is 9-4. Technically a half a game back, but technically more than that because they own the tiebreaker. Marshall is 8-4. They sneak ahead of South Alabama, who will play Southern Miss tonight. Then comes Texas State. They're 8-6. Arkansas State, and that's the game. That game's got to be over by now. Yeah, it is. We'll get to that here in a minute. So maybe they had short games. They're 7-6. Coastal and the Cajuns play tonight. They're 7-6, or Coastal 7-6. Cajuns are 6-6. So we'll get back to the bottom part of the standings here. But App State 10-4, Troy is 9-4, Marshall 8-4, South Alabama 7-4. So South Alabama needs to beat Southern Miss. We'll get to that here momentarily to keep up with those top 4 teams, as Texas State and Arkansas State are lurking. And Arkansas State did not have a letdown whatsoever. They've had this up and down season, but they had a huge win, I think, against Bowling Green in the Sun Belt MAC Challenge, and just dominate ULM from the get-go. 103-70 is your final score. Arkansas State shoots a 55% lights out from the floor, 41% from 3. They made 13 out of 32. Will the free throw be issues? That's 8 out of 16. That's not good. I understand it's 103-70, but somewhere along the way, you're going to need to make a free throw either to come back or to win a ball game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Arkansas State players in double figures. Harmon led the way with 21 points. Jackson had 14. Heyman had 13. Christian Lewis for ULM, he was a leading scorer in the game with 32 points. He had a big ball game. 10 out of 18 from the floor, 7 out of 13 three-pointers, 5 out of 6 free throws. Lewis Broadnax, he had 20 points, 6 out of 13 shooting. So Arkansas State, along with Texas State, right in that, 5-6 spot in the Sun Belt standings with just over a couple of weeks to go, right? And so we'll see how it goes. All right, Marshall is right there as well. We'll talk about, so what do we got? We got Arkansas State a winner. We got Marshall a winner tonight, or last night, case may be. And then you have Troy losing and App State winning. So App State moves into first place. Troy is into second. And Arkansas State climbs and Marshall climbs. All right, let's talk about today's ball games coming up. South Alabama with a big 3-game road trip late in the season, including a big ball game against Marshall on Monday. We'll do that after I tell you about TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in, if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right. So the top flipped in the Sunbelt Conference. Troy losing, App State winning. Marshall moving slightly ahead of South Alabama, and that'll be settled anyways here in a couple of days. So that doesn't matter that much if South Alabama wins. If South Alabama loses, there'll be more on the line, I think. All right, so coming up tonight, and we went over this a little bit yesterday. You do have South Alabama. Again, they have this brutal road trip where they're going to Southern Miss, to Arkansas State, and then across the conference to Marshall. And all of a sudden, Arkansas State, which has been up, down, all around, they're playing good basketball. So that's not going to be an easy ball game, but it will be an interesting matchup because it's offense, Arkansas State, against defense against South Alabama. They did have a problem. Was it last year? They did have a problem with him one year. Kobe Julian didn't play in one of those games. Maybe that was 2 years ago. Off the top of my head, it all rolls together. But you get the Southern Miss ball game tonight. We'll see if Southern Miss can be a thorn in South Alabama's side. They have not had a good season at all. They are 500. They're 13-13, 6-7 in the conference. They have won 2 out of their last 3. They did beat Kent State by 1, which is a nice win, 66-65. They did lose to Marshall in a tough loss, 81-77. And they also beat JMU 73-65. Before those ball games, though, they had lost 5 in a row. So they have lost, 6 out of 7, 6 out of 8. So they've lost 6 out of 8. South Alabama comes in, I think, a little uneven as well. Actually, they have won 4 out of 5. They did lose to App State on the road. Pretty good ball game. And they did lay an egg. They lost at home to the Cajuns. If South Alabama wonders why they're seated where they're seated, if they're not seated first, and I don't think they're going to be, they're going to be wondering why because of that loss to the Cajuns. All right. Losing to App State at App State, all right, not an issue. You can lose to the Cajuns in Louisiana, although they probably shouldn't either. They lost the game they shouldn't have. So we'll see if they can make up on this. You'd like to go 2-1 on the trip. If you can go 3-0, that's going to be tough because you're going to be playing at Southern Miss is not going to be easy. Playing at Arkansas State is going to be tougher, and playing at Marshall is maybe even more tougher. And Marshall and South Alabama are I think they're going to be even here, right? Marshall does play on Saturday, right? Let me see. Maybe they don't. They do play Georgia Southern. So both teams are playing it. In fact, they're on the road. So Marshall is on the road. They'll be playing South Alabama at home, but they are on the road up until those ball games. Okay. Elsewhere, coming up tonight, you do have the Cajuns. Cajuns have won 4 in a row and 5 out of 6. They're taking on Coastal Carolina, who did they lose 2 out of 3? Let's see here. No, they won 2 out of 3. They had won 5 in a row. So what do I got here? 6, 7. They've won 7 out of 9. All right. They have a tough loss to South Alabama and a 4-point loss to Arkansas State. They did beat UMass in that thrilling triple overtime victory to get the Sun Belt MAC Challenge going. Still can't wrap around my head that UMass is the MAC, but that's a different story. And so we'll see what happens. Again, we mentioned Texas State with those 6 losses. Coastal's got 6 losses, and the Cajuns have 6 losses. Someone's going to end up with a 7th loss. And so, can one of these teams either be part of that 5 or 6 spot? Is there a chance to move up? And it's not out of the realm of possibilities. South Alabama could go 0-3 on this trip. That you stumble against Southern Miss, and heck, you could beat Southern Miss and go 1-2 on the trip. And then all of a sudden, all those other teams are right in the smack of getting a 4 seed. So it's not out of that realm of possibility that South Alabama could go 1-2 or 0-3 on this trip. And all of a sudden, South Alabama, which was in second a little bit ago, could be closer to Georgia State than they are to Troy, just like Georgia State was second just a little bit ago. And so we'll see. This is a big ball game. One of these games, did I miss it? Let me see here. One of these games, maybe it's on Saturday, is on ESPN2. I think that's the Saturday ball games. Let me see here. Thought we had some Saturday games on. Maybe not. All right. Let me see here. Maybe there's a Saturday game. I thought there was a Saturday game on the U. Marshall at Georgia Southern is at 8:30 on Saturday, 8:30 Eastern time. So that's a late ball game. That is on ESPNU, but we'll worry about those games later. All right. You do have Georgia State and James Madison. Georgia State, for losing 3 in a row, they got 6 losses. So if they can come up with a victory against James Madison, they may be in the thick of things as well. Again, you're looking to be a top 4 seed. Tough to be a top 2 seed with 6 losses, but not out of the possibility of being, a top 4 seed, getting all the way to the quarters instead of straight to the semifinals. So we'll see how that goes. These games are all late. Yes, of course they are. Southern Miss is playing South Alabama at 7:30 local time. That's 8:30 Eastern time. Although technically I'm not working Friday, so I guess we can stay up for a little bit. James Madison hosting Georgia State. That's at 7. And the Cajuns hosting Coastal Carolina at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern time. All right. So I am not working Friday, so maybe I can stay up. Don't have to go to bed too early. All right. I did list all of the coaches that we had. I tweeted that out there. We've had 9 coaches. I guess I can go down the list for you here. I could probably do the teams off the top of my head, but it's probably just easier to find it on the Twitter. So, and I did it in order in the tweet. Mike Silva from Arkansas State, Ford Pemberton from ULM, Mark Calvey from South Alabama, Chris Finwood from ODU, Troy Trojans, Skylar Meade, Rodney Hennon from Georgia Southern, Kermit Smith from App State, Stephen Trout from Texas State, and Greg Beals from Marshall have all popped on. All right, we're going to try to take 2 again with Marlon Eikenberry. All right, JMU, we're going to do it before they play game 1. So they'll have 1 game under their belt by the time you see it. If it works out, we got it scheduled for Friday morning. We will put it out Saturday morning as a bonus episode. Again, off on Friday. That just works out for everybody. We do hope. We still will try to get the other 4 coaches, but it has not been a lack of effort on my part. You either want to come on or you don't want to come on. I'd love to have you. No real hard feelings if you don't want to come on, but I'm not chasing you down anymore, I guess is the point. You've made your point to me, is what I'm saying. We do appreciate everybody who has come on. It's been really good conversations. We tend to have some laughs, and we've heard different things about, all of a sudden talking about recruiting freshmen. We're getting better freshmen than we had before. It's pretty good. All right, we didn't understand. They're doing more with travel on a spring break. We're gonna fly up there. Who was it? Who was flying? Was it Kermit Smith? Maybe it was Georgia Southern was flying up north during spring break, and then maybe they had something like a JMU. They're opening up with JMU, Sunbelt wise, but they're on spring break the following week, so they're bussing back and they're going to hit some teams to play. Skylar Meade with his whole thing about we got to play more road games. I understand you want to play home games, and that's great. But to get to the NCAA tournament, we got to win on the road. And so I learned some things with these conversations. So I got to go back and listen because you can't write down the players that they're talking about. So maybe that'll be a Friday thing for me to do, write down all the players that they talked about and see how they do moving forward. Do appreciate it. Thank you for all your support. Be nice to get to 2,900, wanted 3,000. And oh, well, subscribers wise, it is what it is. But we're going to have a great end of the basketball season. We had a great night on Wednesday night. We'll see if Thursday proves to be just as exciting. And we're looking forward to talking to the JMU coach on Friday for a bonus episode on Saturday. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been watching a Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Friday.